I shouldn't have checked his phone, but something in me knew. It was supposed to be our dream vacation. White sands, turquoise water, cocktails with paper umbrellas. Just the two of us, finally alone, finally reconnecting. After 10 years of marriage, after all the late nights at his job and my exhaustion from keeping our lives afloat, this was meant to be our reset. We landed in Aruba on a Wednesday. The air was hot and thick with salt. I remember stepping off the plane, holding his hand, thinking, this is it. We're going to be okay. For the first 2 days, everything seemed perfect. He was affectionate. He touched me like he used to. We laughed. We danced barefoot on the beach. He even booked a couple's massage without me asking, something he never did before. I thought maybe I had been wrong. Maybe we were healing. But on the third night, he left me alone at dinner. Said he had a stomachache. Said he needed to lie down. I offered to go with him, but he insisted I stay, enjoy the wine, the music. I sat there alone for almost 2 hours. When I came back to our room, he was in bed, shirtless, scrolling on his phone. He locked it the second I walked in. My stomach twisted. He smiled, reached out his hand. Feeling better now, he said. Let's get some sleep. But I couldn't. I lay there in the dark, listening to the waves crash outside our balcony. His breathing evened out beside me. And something just snapped. At 2 a.m. I slid out of bed, took his phone from the nightstand, and tiptoed to the bathroom. My hands were shaking. I knew his passcode. Of course I did. I'd known it for years. And just like that, his world opened. I started with the messages. At first, nothing. A few work texts. Some jokes with his brother. But then I found her. Her name was Jade. I didn't know a Jade. The thread was long. Months long. Filled with photos. Some of her in bikinis. Some of them together. Kissing. Naked in a hotel mirror. One message stopped my breath cold. Can't wait to see you again in Aruba. I booked us that suite you liked. Suite? Not room. Suite? I was sleeping with my husband in a double bed at the resort. But he had booked a suite for her. In the same damn hotel. My legs went numb. I slid down the tiled wall, phone clutched in my hand, tears hot and silent. My husband hadn't brought me to Aruba to save our marriage. He brought me to Aruba so he could fuck another woman a few floors above me. I don't remember how long I sat there on the cold bathroom floor, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest, screen light casting shadows on my trembling hands. My breath was ragged, shallow, like I was drowning on dry land. I stared at the photos, the emojis, the cheap, filthy words they send each other. Miss your lips. Still taste you on my fingers. Counting the hours until I can feel you again. And then the last message, sent just that morning while I was in the shower. I'll sneak away after dinner. Room 517. Bring that red thing I like. Room 517. My mind screamed it over and over. Not a name, not a woman, not even a human being at this point, just a room number. A destination. A place where everything I believed in had already been set on fire. I went back to bed like a ghost. I didn't wake him. I didn't scream or cry or rip the sheets off the bed like some wild movie scene. I just climbed in beside him, tucked the phone back on the nightstand, and stared at the ceiling. I stared until the sunrise poured through the curtains, soft and golden and cruel in its warmth. And when he finally stirred, kissed my shoulder, and mumbled, "Morning, baby," I wanted to vomit. I got dressed before he could ask questions. I told him I wanted to explore the island alone, get some air, maybe shop a little. He smiled, kissed me again, and said, "That's my girl." His girl. What a joke. But I wasn't going shopping. I went straight to the front desk. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm looking for a friend." "Jade." She said she was in room 517, but I forgot her last name. The receptionist smiled, polite but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't disclose guest information." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Please. It's important. I think she's with my husband." Her smile faded. She looked at me, then looked down at her screen, and after a long pause, said, "There's a Jade checked into that room. Alone. Alone." So he hadn't even waited for the end of our trip. She was already here. They planned it this way. Our vacation, his cover story, my pain, all orchestrated like some sick play where I played the fool and didn't even know it. I walked away from that desk with my pulse in my throat. My legs felt like rubber. I didn't know what I was going to do. Confront him? Her? Go up there and kick the damn door down? Or just leave, catch a flight home, and disappear from his life without another word? But as I stood at the edge of the pool area watching happy couples sip frozen drinks and laugh under the sun, something shifted in me. A coldness. A clarity. I didn't want justice. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to watch him burn. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat under a palm tree, sunglasses shielding my red eyes, mimicking the role of a content wife basking in the sun. Around me, couples held hands, posed for selfies, whispered secrets over mojitos. The very things I came here for. The very things he was giving to someone else, someone younger, slimmer, bolder. Someone who didn't spend years building a life with him, cleaning up after his career burnout, putting her own dreams on hold so he could chase his. I sipped my drink slowly, the ice clinking against the glass like a countdown. I knew he'd find me soon, full of lies and half-smiles, pretending to be the loving husband he never truly was. Sure enough, around noon I saw him. Tan, shirtless, grinning like the world owed him a favor. He strolled over and dropped beside me on the lounger, brushing a kiss against my cheek. "You been out here long?" he asked, voice casual, like we weren't living two different lives inside the same hotel room. I looked at him, this man I thought I knew, and felt a wave of disgust roll through me so strong I had to glance away. "I went for a walk," I said, keeping my tone light. "Saw some pretty shops. Got you something?" I handed him a small bag I had picked up in the lobby just to sell the lie. He opened it, saw the keychain, laughed like nothing in the world was wrong. "You're sweet," he said, pocketing it like it meant something. But I wasn't being sweet. I was biding time, waiting for the moment I'd make my move. By late afternoon, he told me he needed to make a few work calls in the room. I nodded. "Of course, babe. I'll be at the spa for a bit." We kissed. He left. I followed 5 minutes later. I didn't go to the spa. I waited outside room 517. I knew he was in there. Knew she was too. I heard faint laughter. A woman's voice. Music playing from inside. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd faint. My palms were slick. My mind screamed, "Don't do this, don't look, you'll never unsee it." But I needed to. I needed to see them with my own eyes. Needed to shatter whatever illusion I was still clinging to. The door wasn't fully latched. Just a sliver open. And when I pushed it slowly, silently, what I saw changed me forever. He was on the bed. Naked. So was she. They were laughing. Drinking wine straight from the bottle. There was a pizza box on the dresser, music on the Bluetooth speaker, her clothes scattered on the floor. It wasn't just sex. It was comfort. Familiarity. Intimacy. He wasn't cheating on me with a stranger. He was living a whole other life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I closed the door just as quietly as I'd opened it and walked away. But I wasn't done. I went back to our room and packed. Every single thing. My clothes, my charger, my toiletries. I booked a flight home for that night. Paid extra for an early seat. I called a cab to wait for me in an hour. And then I did one last thing. I opened his suitcase. I found his laptop and logged in. He never changed his passwords. Not for me. Not for her either. And what I found, that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His laptop was a treasure chest of betrayal. Not just messages, not just photos. Whole folders. Labeled. Organized. Hidden in plain sight under innocent names like invoices and reports Q2. I opened one, reports Q2, and my breath caught in my throat. Videos. Dozens of them. Him and Jade in different places. Hotel rooms, beaches, even what looked like his office. I watched maybe 5 seconds of one before I slammed it shut, while rising in my throat. The worst part wasn't the sex. It was the way he looked at her. Soft. Intimate. Like she mattered. Like he had once looked at me. But that wasn't all I found. He had been transferring money. Thousands of dollars every month into an account that wasn't ours. I traced it. It belonged to her. Jade. He wasn't just cheating with her, he was funding her. Rent, gifts, flights. I found receipts for designer clothes, spa treatments, concert tickets. While I clipped coupons and made grocery lists, he was swiping his card to spoil his mistress. I felt something inside me harden, crack, and turn to dust. This wasn't just infidelity. It was embezzlement of our life. He stole from us, from me, to build a fantasy for someone else. I took pictures. Of everything. The transfers. The videos. The emails. I uploaded them to the cloud, sent copies to a secure folder, emailed them to myself with a note, in case I disappear. Then I left something for him. Not a note. Not a tear-stained goodbye. Just the hotel key card and a single post-it on the pillow that read, "Check your laptop. I know everything. Enjoy hell." I left before he got back. Stepped into the cab like I was shedding a skin. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I flew home, landed in the middle of the night, and walked into our house with a new kind of clarity. Everything about my marriage had been a lie. And now that I knew, I was done playing the loyal wife. I would not beg. I would not negotiate. I would destroy. The next morning, my phone rang. It was him. I didn't answer. He called again, texted, left a voicemail. Baby, I'm so sorry. Please, let's talk. It's not what you think. I laughed out loud. It was exactly what I thought. And now? Now it was my turn to act. He showed up 2 days later, unannounced, standing on our porch with sunburned cheeks and desperation in his eyes, holding a bouquet of cheap airport flowers like that could undo the filth he'd dragged into our lives. I watched him through the peephole for a solid minute, my heart calm, steady. Then I opened the door. Slowly. No greeting. No smile. Just silence. He looked like hell. His shirt was wrinkled, hair disheveled, voice trembling as he said, "Please, just let me explain." I let him in. Not because I wanted to hear his excuses, but because I needed to watch him squirm. I needed to look him in the eye and see if he would lie to me again. He sat on the edge of the couch, hunched over like a scolded child. "I messed up," he began. "It didn't mean anything. I was stupid. I thought I needed, I don't know, excitement. She was a distraction. That's all. I never stopped loving you." I stood there, arms crossed, every muscle in my body coiled with rage. "Distraction?" I repeated, voice low. "You spent our money on her. Lied to me. Slept next to me with her perfume still on you. That's not a distraction. That's a decision." Over and over. He shook his head, tears brimming. "I swear it's over. It meant nothing. I'll do anything to fix this." I stepped closer, bent down so we were eye to eye. "I saw the videos," I said quietly. His face drained of color. His mouth opened, then closed again like he was gasping for air. "I saw the money transfers," I added. "The gifts. The plane tickets. You didn't just cheat. You invested in her." He reached for me, his voice cracking. "Please, baby. Don't do this. I'll make it right. I'll cut her off. We'll go to therapy." I laughed. A dry, sharp, bitter sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. "You don't get to fix this," I said. "Because I already am." I walked to the table, grabbed the thick manila envelope I had prepared and tossed it into his lap. He opened it. Bank records. Screenshots. A letter from my lawyer. Divorce papers. Filed. Ready. Final. He stared at them like they were in another language. "You really want to throw this all away?" he whispered. "And that's when I lost it. You already did. You threw it away the second you looked at another woman and thought she deserved your loyalty more than I did. You had me. You had a life. And you torched it for a pair of legs and some fake compliments." He stood up, chest heaving, face red. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand. She made me feel alive, eh?" "No," I interrupted. "She made you feel like you could be someone else. Someone younger, richer, freer. But you're not. You're just a coward who couldn't face the reality of the life you built." He didn't say another word. Just stood there. Defeated. Exposed. And then he left. And when that door clicked shut behind him, I felt it for the first time in months. Peace. The days that followed were strangely quiet. Like the air itself had changed. No more checking the clock to see when he'd come home. No more pretending not to notice when he was emotionally absent, body present but mind somewhere else. The house felt lighter without him in it. His absence wasn't a void, it was a relief. I slept alone in the bed we used to share, and for the first time in a long while, I actually slept well. No tossing. No late-night wondering. No waiting for the truth to slip through his lies. But the peace didn't last long. His emails started the next week. Long, rambling messages about how he'd made a mistake, how he missed me, how Jade wasn't what he thought. "She's not you," he wrote. "She doesn't challenge me. She doesn't understand me like you do. She was never supposed to replace you." He talked about nostalgia, about memories, about the vacations we took before things got hard. He mentioned our wedding day, our song, our late-night drives. He was trying to sell me the past like it was some precious heirloom. But to me, it was shattered glass, sharp, dangerous, and impossible to piece back together. Then came the threats. Not violent, but manipulative. He started saying things like, "You won't survive without me, and you're making a mistake walking away from everything we built." He reminded me of how long we'd been together, how intertwined our lives were. And when that didn't work, he switched tactics. Begging again, promising therapy, couples retreats, even a vow renewal. But I saw through it all. He wasn't fighting for me. He was fighting for his comfort, his image, his access to the life we'd built together, the life I had carried when he stopped contributing. He didn't want to be alone, not because he loved me, but because he loved what I represented. Stability, history, devotion. The things Jade could imitate but never truly offer. I didn't respond to any of his emails. Not even the one where he said, "I don't recognize myself anymore." Good. That meant the mask had finally slipped. One morning, I got a message from one of our mutual friends. Just a simple line. "You okay? Heard about what happened in Aruba." I froze. Apparently, he'd started telling people his version. That I overreacted. That it was just a fling. That I threw away our marriage over nothing. But what he didn't know was that I had already begun quietly dismantling everything behind the scenes. Finances separated, joint accounts closed, assets restructured. I wasn't just walking away from him. I was making sure there was nothing left for him to hold on to when I was gone. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was building my exit, brick by brick, silently, powerfully. And then came the final blow. Something I hadn't planned for. Something he never saw coming. The final blow came from someone I never expected, her, Jade. It started with a message on Facebook. A simple notification. "Jade Simmons has sent you a message request." My stomach clenched when I saw it. I hovered over it for several minutes, debating whether to open Pandora's box. But curiosity won. I clicked. Her message was short. Too short, considering the chaos she had helped cause. "I didn't know he was married. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" First, I scoffed. Typical. Denial, damage control, and a pathetic attempt to smooth things over. But something about it gnawed at me. I needed to know. I needed to hear her voice. Not for closure, but for confirmation. Confirmation that the man I had loved for over a decade had been living a double life with a woman who thought she was his only one. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep it civil. When she walked in, I was startled. She wasn't what I expected. She looked normal. Not the sultry vixen I had built in my head. Not some devil in designer heels. Just a woman. Younger, yes. Prettier? Maybe in the way youth has a shine to it. But she looked nervous. Fragile. And somehow just as broken as I felt. She sat down slowly, her eyes searching mine. "I didn't know," she said again. "I swear. He told me he was divorced. Said you cheated on him. That he was healing from a toxic relationship." I couldn't speak. She continued, voice cracking. "He made me feel like I was saving him. Like he was this hurt, wounded man trying to rebuild his life. He said he didn't believe in love anymore, and that I was the only one who made him feel again. God. He even cried in front of me. I clenched my jaw. That bastard had weaponized his lies. He hadn't just cheated. He'd rewritten our entire history to play the victim in someone else's fantasy. Jade wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm not trying to defend myself. I need you to know that I didn't know. And when I found out, I ended it. I told him to leave me alone. And that's when he lost it. Apparently, he'd spiraled after our divorce papers landed in his lap. When Jade pulled away too, he started hounding her, calls, texts, even showing up at her apartment. She had blocked him, changed her number, moved cities. And now, she was here, trying to stitch together her own shattered version of the truth. I listened in silence, torn between pity and rage. She was as much a victim as I was. But the difference? I had shared a home with him, a life, a history. She had only seen the mask. She looked at me and said, "I think he's sick, narcissistic, dangerous even. I know it's not my place, but I wanted to warn you. He's unraveling. If he can't have you or me, he might try something desperate." And in that moment, something inside me crystallized. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because while I had been preparing to rebuild, he had been preparing to self-destruct. And if I wasn't careful, he might try to take me down with him. After my meeting with Jade, I walked out of that coffee shop with a heaviness I couldn't quite describe. Not just from hearing her story or reliving mine through her eyes, but from the realization that he hadn't just broken me. He had weaponized every ounce of my love, every ounce of her admiration, and twisted them into tools for his own fragile ego. The man I married wasn't a man at all. He was a master of illusion, feeding off validation, terrified of emptiness, hiding behind charm and vulnerability like armor. I changed the locks the next day. I added security cameras, updated passwords, and filed a restraining order just in case. I didn't wait for something to happen. I'd waited enough in that marriage, waited for love to return, for honesty, for dignity. Not anymore. Now, I moved first. He called again the following week. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was strained, erratic. I know you've talked to her. I know what she's saying. But she's lying. She always lies. You know me better than anyone. Don't let her turn you against me. You're my wife. We made vows. I still believe in them. He sounded unhinged. Panicked. Like a cornered animal lashing out before the final blow. I didn't respond. I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. No name. Just a single message. You think you're so strong. But I made you. And I can break you too. That was the last straw. I called the police. Filed a report. The officers took it seriously. They'd seen enough domestic situations escalate to know when someone was spiraling. I gave them everything, the emails, the voicemails, the threats. I wasn't playing the victim. I was building a case. Days passed. Then a week. Silence. Until one morning I received an email from his work address. Subject line, you win. It was short. Defeated. Detached. I'm leaving the city. I've lost everything. I hope you're happy now. You got what you wanted. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Because what I wanted was never revenge. It was respect. Honesty. Partnership. And he had robbed me of those things long before I ever found out about Jade. Still, I felt the shift. The storm was passing. The rage had burned out. The fear had quieted. And in its place? A new kind of power. Not the power of hurting someone back, but the power of surviving them. Of walking through the fire and coming out clean. And yet, there was still one piece of the story I hadn't told. One person who still didn't know. Someone who would look at me with questioning eyes and say, "Where's Dad?" My mother was the last person I told. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I knew what she would say. She'd seen the cracks long before I had the courage to admit they were there. She had gently tried to warn me over the years, never pushing too hard, but always hinting, he's charming, but there's something off about him. And like most women raised to believe that loyalty is the measure of love, I defended him. I silenced the voice in my gut. I chose him again and again until there was nothing left of me to give. When I finally sat her down, her reaction wasn't explosive. It wasn't even angry. It was worse. It was heartbreak. She looked at me across the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched, and whispered, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I wish you had told me sooner." Her eyes filled with tears, not just for what he did to me, but for what I had done to myself in trying to protect him. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and said something I'll never forget. "You didn't fail your marriage. He failed you. You just survived it." And in that moment, the last thread of guilt that had been strangling me finally snapped. I stopped blaming myself. Stopped questioning every choice I'd made. Stopped wondering what I could have done differently to keep a man who never deserved me in the first place. The weeks that followed were quieter. Not empty, just still. I started to rediscover myself, not as a wife or as a woman scorned, but simply as me. I went back to painting, something I hadn't done in years. I changed my hair. I redecorated the living room. I joined a yoga class, not to get fit, not to heal, but just because I wanted to stretch and breathe and feel something that was mine. And one night, lying in bed alone, I realized something that stopped me cold. I didn't miss him. Not his voice. Not his touch. Not even the version of him I had built in my head. That fantasy had died the moment I saw him in room 517 with Jade, laughing like I didn't exist. And the real him? The coward, the manipulator, the liar? He could rot in whatever hole he crawled into. But even with that clarity, I still had one final step to take. A conversation I couldn't avoid. A truth I had to speak aloud, not for me, but for the younger version of myself who once believed in forever. I stood in front of the mirror that night and looked into my own eyes, really looked. And I said it out loud. He betrayed me. But he doesn't define me. I am not broken. I am becoming. That was the moment I truly knew I was free. Almost. There was still one thing left to do. One last act of closure. Closure didn't come in some dramatic confrontation or grand declaration. It came in the quiet, mundane form of a cardboard box. His things. The remnants of a life we had built together. Now reduced to folded shirts, a broken watch, old chargers, and a few books I had no intention of keeping. I placed everything inside carefully, not out of nostalgia, but out of finality. This was it. The last physical connection. The last time I'd let any piece of him occupy space in my world. I taped the box shut and drove it to the storage unit he'd rented before we left for Aruba. a place he once claimed was for seasonal gear and extra tools. I knew better now. I was almost certain it had been his staging ground for this double life, a place where he kept the parts of himself he didn't want me to see. I dropped the box at the front desk, signed the delivery form, and walked out without looking back. The sun was shining. The sky was painfully blue, and I felt nothing. Not sadness, not relief, just peace. The kind of peace that comes after a long war, when the smoke has cleared and all that's left is silence and the soft, unfamiliar hum of beginning again. A few weeks later, I received a final email. No subject line, just 2 sentences. I'm sorry. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Take care. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Some people believe closure comes from forgiveness. That to heal, you must release the pain, let it go like a balloon into the sky. But I don't believe that anymore. Some betrayals aren't meant to be forgiven. Some wounds don't need to be kissed to stop bleeding. Sometimes, healing is choosing yourself every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when the echo of the past tries to claw its way back in. I started over, piece by piece. I moved to a new apartment, took a solo trip to the mountains, woke up one morning and realized I hadn't thought about him in days. I met new people. I laughed, real laughter, not the hollow kind I used to fake just to keep the peace. And slowly, the version of me he tried to bury began to rise again. Fiercer, smarter, whole. People ask if I'd ever trust again. The answer is yes, but differently. Wiser, sharper, with boundaries carved from fire. Because this isn't a story about being destroyed. It's a story about survival. About what happens when you finally stop asking why they hurt you and start asking why you kept letting them. And the answer is never about them. It's about you. And the day you finally decide, I'm worth more than this, that's the day you start to live again.